Awesome. So we are now at one of the final stages of a SMB sales process. Now, it's very important that if you're dropping into this video no context, that you go through and you have a look at the prior videos in this series or in this playlist that I've created. My team should have a link in the description box below. So I recommend you go through and have a look through that. And as for the mood lighting and the blue blocks, it is just past midnight here. So I'm in a bit of a filming blitz at the moment, hence filming quite late at night or early in the morning, whichever way you look at it. So let's get into this. We are, as I said, in one of the final stages of the sales cycle. And if we go back to our SMB sales cycle, just for reference, essentially where we're at is the go, no go meeting. Okay. So what does the go, no go meeting actually look like? What is the format? What is the exact slides that you would use? I'm going to share that with you. Now, firstly, there is a mandatory requirement before a go, no go meeting happens. And that is you absolutely must have economic buyer attendance. Non-negotiable. The EB has to be on this go, no go meeting. I have cancelled go, no go meetings because the EB is pulled out like last minute. I've literally just gone, hey, I've literally told champions, I've said, look, for us to be able to go forward with this proof of value, your CFO has to dial into that meeting. I apologize. I'm being quite stringent here, but that's because my business is going to be stringent with me. They're not going to deploy the resources unless everyone is on the same page. I really need your help here, right? And I've had that conversation before, and if you frame it that way, right? Again, this is a tactic that I talk about a lot. Make the business the enemy. You're the good cop. You're the nice sales rep that is just trying to help them out. All of this is a simulated scenario, and I really hope no one on the other side actually sees this video, right? But most of this is a simulated scenario. You got to understand, trials and proof of values do cost dollars to companies, right? You are allocating resources, or your SaaS company that you work for is allocating resources. They're allocating engineers. They're setting up an instance. All of this costs shit, right? So that's why I say it's important that the EB, the economic buyer, is in attendance. Now, during the meeting, this is how you would typically run the meeting, right? So let me just have a look at this. Yeah, that's all fine. Okay. So essentially what you do is you open off the meeting with a upfront contract. So again, if you're dropping into this video cold and you're looking at what is an upfront contract, this is why I say you need to go back and watch the videos in the series. So take the link from the description below, load that on a different window or on a different tab. And after you watch this, go back and watch all of that, right? And all of this will start to make sense. But you establish the upfront contract. Typically, the upfront contract for a POV go-ahead meeting, again, very straightforward, is you literally say something on the lines of, hey, gents or folks, thanks for hopping onto this meeting. Just a scene set. I just want to let you know, typically these go one of two ways. We sometimes get to the end of today, everyone's on the same page, and we go ahead with a proof of value, and we explore what a partnership looks like after. Alternatively, we may get to end of today, and we can't necessarily, get on the same page, which is totally fine, right? I just want to let you know that there's whichever way this goes, I'm completely comfortable with that alternative, but I'd love to see if we could explore a partnership together. I just realized there as well, I did a bit of a modified UFC. Typically when you do an upfront contract, you want to lead with the negative first. So I would, if I was to actually correct myself in real time, I would say, hey, typically these conversations go one of two ways. Sometimes we may get to the end and we can't quite find that match to want to move forward into that testing phase prior to looking at kicking off the partnership formally. Alternatively, we may get to the end of today and we're all in sync to move forward with testing and to explore a partnership. Either way, I hope those outcomes are okay with you. Get their feedback. Yep, totally fine with that. Awesome. Thank you for setting the scene. Cool. Then we get into the actual meeting, right? So very straightforward. You got to understand, a go no go meeting is quite short. Like we're talking like 30 minutes. I don't tend to overcook these, right? Because we want to make it short, sharp, snappy, punchy, straight to the point, right? You usually got the executive, the person that is signing off this damn thing on that meeting. So you don't want to draw this out. You don't want to overcook this. So typically what you would do is you would recap the value proposition and the 3 whys. So if I was to pull what a sample deck would look like, right, you would typically recap the value prop over here, right? And then if you remember the VP from earlier, this would all be updated, by the way. So you want to make sure this is up to date with all of their most up-to-date information that they've shared with you from the last call, from the demo. Then you would have your 3 whys, right? So the reason we have the VP, the reason you have your VP is because this kind of ties back to the overall strategic picture of the business, right? So you're like, hey, how does what we're talking about, the technology challenges, the technology goals, how does all link up? So this is slightly different to the sample or to the 3 whys. The 3 whys is really just focused on pain, urgency, and how you're going to address that pain, right? Specifically. So if you remember, again, this is what a 3 whys looks like. You've got why anything, which is your pain. This is all specific to the customer that I was dealing with, which is Detmold Group at the time, during my time at Zscaler. The why Zscaler bucket, this is really straightforward. What capabilities of Zscaler align directly to the pain? So we're talking about the solution alignment and the technology outcomes. And then the why now, that is the urgency, right? So I will include a template for you. I'll make a mental note of that so that you can literally just punch in information. I'll probably include some GPT prompts as well. So again, if you haven't watched previous videos, I talked to you about how to create this. Very straightforward. You should be using your meeting transcripts. So if you're not using like a Read AI or an Otter AI, one of the other transcription tools, like you're sleeping on tech, man. Like just get on it. It's fantastic, right? It makes your life so much easier. It makes doing this stuff so much easier, right? Because you can automate so much of this, right? So give yourself the time. Give yourself the time back. Anyways, so recap the VP, recap the 3 whys. Again, you want to make sure that you're using these artifacts because executives love this shit. Executives love these artifacts. Like they look at it and they're like, fantastic. You've just synthesized everything in the last how many ever hours of conversations into like 2 slides. They love it. Okay. Then what you want to do is have your commercials. So quickly cover off your commercials. Ignore this part around cost justifications. That's more of a mid-market or an enterprise thing, right? Like you can, like I do have some very sophisticated stuff that I do with some of the enterprise sellers around, rationalization documents or value documents where you can really start to like extrapolate out the value and all of that. But like if you're doing small business sales, keep it simple, right? You don't need to overcook this. There's no need to go mad trying to build out complex value models. So you have your pricing overview, and as I mentioned, this is your sample pricing slide. So just feel free to use that. And the last slide that you will have is usually a reverse timeline, right? So slide 3, sorry, should be slide 4. I'm just modifying this deck slightly. The last slide that you should have is the reverse timeline. And this is what a reverse timeline looks like, right? So again, I don't have a template for this, but these are quite easy to create in PowerPoint, right? So I would really recommend that you have a reverse timeline as the last slide, because what you're doing is you're basically taking all of their urgency, inputting it into your reverse timeline, and then you're replaying it back to the executive. And so if you have a look over here, right? So I've literally presented this to a customer when I was selling in Zscaler, right? So literally here I'm saying November 8th POC starts, and then we've got, all the way through to the sign-off dates. I've got 3rd week of Jan sign-off, deployment introductions mid-Jan or early Jan. That's where the VPN, their existing solution, was being decommissioned. So we literally freaking mapped out the entire journey. And this is pretty straightforward to do. You should be able to get a pretty good handle on dates by the time you finish your demo, so you can start to then map out exactly where things are going to fit. If you have any questions, by the way, if you're trying to build this out for your prospect and you're like, actually, I'm not sure about some stuff, call up your champion. It's a good opportunity to just get them on the phone and say, hey, I'm building out a quick deck for the catch up with the CFO. And thank you for organizing that. I want to make sure that I'm just capturing timelines correctly. When would you be looking to test? When would you be looking at a target kickoff date if testing was successful? What's the procurement? Is there any procurement timeline? Is there any sign-off time that we need to factor in? Take all of those dates down. Take all of those dates down from them and input that into your reverse timeline, right? So that goes in there. And ignore all of this. I mean, really, this is kind of the next part. So we can get into that. We can get into that on the next bit where I talk about POVs. Again, this deck contains a lot of the mid-market stuff as well, so that's why it had a few different things in there. But if everyone is good, right? If everyone is good with everything before this, then basically what you say is, hey, let's set up the time to kick off the proof of value process, and I'll talk to you about that in the next video, what the proof of value process looks like. Very important, by the way. A lot of sales reps do not have tightly controlled or tightly scoped proof of values, and trust me, having sold tech and SaaS and services for so long, if you don't have tightly scoped proof of values and a tightly controlled process around proof of values, you just throw them the keys and you say, go test my software. That is the quickest way to tank your deal, okay? So agree to set up a POV. Technically, you don't want to go straight into a kickoff time. I'd usually go into a POV scoping time plus kickoff time. So you want to set up 2 calls there. So I'm just going to highlight that, 2 calls. Don't worry, I'll talk to you about in the next video exactly what this looks like. And then the other thing that I usually say is, can I, you literally tell your prospect while your economic buyer is on that call, you say, hey, while we're concurrently getting the POV happening in the background, in the meantime, just to make sure everyone's across the terms and conditions, and we can get ahead of any legal hiccups, I'll send through the quotes and I'll send through our master services agreement, right? Or I'll send through our T's and C's. So what you've basically done, right, is you've also subtly, or not so subtly, kicked off the commercial process, right? And you don't ask them for this. You just say, hey, I'm going to do this, right? So again, this is where you just take charge. You literally will just say, hey guys, thank you for the time. Great meeting. Just to make sure that things are all smooth from a legal standpoint as well. I'm just going to send through the T's and C's so that you guys can start to have a look, and I'll include the quotes in there as well. So in case your legal team or anyone in the team, a company secretary, COSEC or legal needs to have a look at it, we'll just get it across to you, right? So just gets the process rolling. That's what we want to start to do when we get to the end of this stage of the sales cycle, right? Is we want to get this process rolling. Anyways, close out by setting off a POV scoping time and then also set up a kickoff time. So you're setting up 2 calls, and we will get into the final part of this AE Readiness Series. And thank you all for, if I've got your attention, you're going strong and you're binging these videos and taking notes, good job. This is heavy, long form content, very anecdotal, lots of stuff flying at you, and some of this might be new concepts. So good job if you're, taking the time to really digest all of this. I promise you it will be a game changer in your career, right? Like this stuff has literally changed the trajectory of my life because sales has just been phenomenal for me. Anyways, hope that was useful. If you need any further help, my team should have some links below where you can book some time with me to hop on and have a bit of a yarn. Or alternatively, feel free to just drop a comment under the video. If it's not too lengthy, I'll answer it. If it is, book some time with me. All right, take care. I'll see you in the next video.